this lesson we're going to be taking a look at sweep picking. I'm going to take a very sort of basic look at it from the beginning, just so you can get used to a couple of things that I've found useful, definitely learning this technique. Sweeping for me is something that I've found pretty difficult. Out of all the different techniques that there are to learn on the guitar, sweep picking for me has definitely been something that I've struggled with the most. Up until recently, which I've actually started to find new ways of being able to incorporate certain types of sweep picking in with some string skipping stuff. But that's going to be much later on. We'll discuss that in more detail. But there's a couple of things that I want to show you pattern wise that I would do across maybe 3 strings, which is something that you can practice at home to really get yourself going with the technique of sweep picking. We're going to do this in the key of B minor. And you don't need a 7-string guitar for this, but I just fancy playing it today, so that's what I'm using. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is concentrate on downward sweep picking. There's going to be 1 upstroke in there, but that's just for the turnaround, and then you're going to be using some hammer-ons as well to go back down. So at a slow tempo, we're just going to take a B minor arpeggio. The notes are going to be the 11th fret on the G string, 12 on the B, 10 on the high E string, and then 14 on the high E as well. And you're basically just going to be sort of down picking through the G, the B and the high E string, and then an upstroke on the last note. Now the thing is with sweep picking, you're not picking each note individually, you're actually pushing the pick through the strings. So you're actually going to have like it's kind of like a rest stroke, and you're just pushing through it. Okay, so that's kind of the idea with sweep picking. That's the type of effect that you want to get. Maybe just practice doing that before you even worry about the left hand. Just try and kind of get used to that motion with your right hand, but try and keep it controlled. Don't just sit there and go, because that doesn't have any kind of musical relevance. But if you can kind of slow that down and really get used to just feeling each string. You might want to do it across more strings, just because when you start to develop more of these arpeggios that you'll be sweeping, you can kind of get used to doing that sort of technique. Okay, but the lick is going to be this. Okay, so it's pretty simple, but when you sort of first starting doing this kind of thing, it might not feel simple, but the main thing that you want to concentrate on is getting the coordination between your right and left hand. You don't want to be sweep picking faster than your left hand, and you don't want your left hand to be going faster than your right hand can sweep. So, it really does take good coordination to get a lot of these notes to ring out. And also what you don't want is when you do bigger arpeggios, you want to actually still hear all the notes, because any of these like sort of big rakes, sometimes you only hear maybe the beginning note and maybe the last couple of notes or something. So you just end up with like a massive lick where you don't really hear what's going on in between. Sweep picking should sound like you're probably not really picking, if you know what I mean. So it sounds more like you've sort of held the neck at this end and then done it with your left hand. But in actual fact, you're actually sort of like picking all the notes. Well, I mean, saying that, I actually prefer sweep picking where it sounds like someone isn't, if you know what I mean. I mean, that's why sweep picking for me, I chose to kind of learn doing it where I was sort of like picking, or just doing the down picking. Like with that, I'm sweep picking up, but then I'm not doing it on the way down, because I like the sort of fluid sound of having the attack in the beginning, then the fluid sound afterwards, because it adds a good dynamic to the arpeggio, rather than just kind of up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It just becomes a little bit relentless after a while. And we're never concentrating on technique or anything like that. The musical pursuit should always kind of run in tandem with building your technique as well. So you want things to sound cool as well as feel good for you. So okay, that's one pattern that I was looking at. Another one is going to be a slight variation of that where you just repeat the top 2 strings. So let's see how that sounds. Okay, a little bit slower than that. Okay, so you're just repeating the top note, and it's something that you can do to sort of swap between that and the first exercise, so you get a good variation of something that you can do with the same shape, and it just kind of breaks it up a little bit. So you know, mixing them together can sound something like this. Okay, the reason why I moved out of position in that example is because like some of the double ones that I'll do on the high E string, that'll be a good place to sort of change into another arpeggio. So yeah, sometimes I'll kind of do like double things on the top of the high E string and then move into another arpeggio, just because it kind of adds, again, a little bit more of an aggressive dynamic. But it's entirely up to you what you want to do. These are just ideas that I'm, you know, trying to help you out with, that you can use as variations on working on this technique. There's also going to be one final one in this lesson which I'll take you through, which is going to be sort of working completely the other way, and it's going to be a different dynamic again, so it's going to sound like this. Okay, so we're basically going to be doing the opposite direction this time with the sweeping. Instead of sweeping down, we're going to be sweeping up towards the ceiling. But we're going to start with a downstroke and then 3 upstrokes. So using the same position again, downstroke on the 14th fret of the high E string, and then up on the 10, up on the 12, and then on the B, and then up on the 11 on the G. And again, the same with downward sweeping, you've kind of got that rest stroke. Okay, which is very important for that sweep picking sound. So here we go. And yeah, you can do variations of the other 2 examples. So you know, and then basically practice between 1, 2 and 3, and you've already got 3 really good variations for sweep picking there, which you can use across 3 string arpeggios, whichever you decide to do really. I mean, that's a B minor. You can just bring up your first finger to the 11th fret on the high E string and have a B major arpeggio. That's a slightly different tonality. And also you can apply the other 2 positions as well. Okay, so basically what you want to do is just practice all of those slow, and when you have them down slow, you know, just gradually speed them up and try and keep it as clean as possible. You know, something that I still practice with is sweep picking, is trying to keep it as clean as possible. Yeah, try and include these in your own playing as well, because being able to incorporate this into a solo or improvising is going to be the end goal. So get to grips with these licks and then basically try and use them.